Hey guys, this channel is all about me trying to become Iron Man. If you're here because of the name of the video, check the timestamp below. That's when I get on the computer and I talk about and I look at some photos and try to figure out how this Project Egress thing worked. Specifically the latches, how the latches drop in and do that. The beginning of this video is me thinking about how I'm going to take those ideas and use them to make a part of my Iron Man suit, the part that will be a quick release for my fuel cell, my fuel tank on the back of me, and so I can eject the flammable stuff if I need to. And I wanted to, the way I'm doing that is kind of by looking at how they made the hatch system for the Apollo missions. But if you just want to see how I think the latches work, check the timestamp below and go there. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Iron Vlog number 149. This is my journey to become Iron Man. This is the beginning of the torso right here. So I've spent more time and I've really been fleshing out how I'm going to weld these pieces on. But that's not really what I want to show you guys right now. Remember, we were talking about a quick release system for fuel, and I've been kind of just brainstorming about that, and I just wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm working on. So this part is the exoskeleton part, and then the idea is everything, there'll be a fuel tank coming off over here like this. So came over here and I set up a pressure vessel or there. So that would be, this is like a tank right here. So this is like a simulation I ran. This right here would hold about 4 gallons, just under 4 gallons of fuel. You know, this is a rough approximation. Couple things though. So first off, we run over to the simulation and we look at this under 200 PSI, which is about what I would want it to operate at. So there'd be an external tank with a regulator or something that would keep this at pressure. Probably filled with argon because it's fucking fuel. You don't want to compress it with oxygen, that'd be very bad. Compressed with argon or something like that, and that would be a proper pressure for the flamethrower. But I'm not sure about for the jet engines. I'm not sure if that would be too much pressure. I don't think it'd be too little. It might be a little bit too much for jet engines. But what you can see here is this is failing. So now I kind of understand in the simulation, you can see it's on this hard seam right here. It's failing, but it looks just fine up here on the rounded part. And I understand now why they make pressure tanks round. So I'd probably have to make this smaller and make it rounded all over. And then this right here is fixed, so it's saying this can't move, which is why this is all blue and not damaging. But if this wasn't fixed, I'm sure you'd be seeing the same failure that you'd be seeing right here. I'm sure you'd be seeing it over here as well. So I'd have to redesign that, and so it'd be even less than that. And then let me show you another problem. So with that, so if we switch over, this is the jet engine I'm looking at right now. This is a P400 Pro. This is a JetCat engine. So have you ever seen anyone flying around like the Take on Gravity guy when he's flying around in his jet engines, or the Flyboard Air guy? They're all using engines like these. They might not be using these size, but they're using the ones from this company. And this is the Pro Series, and I think these are the ones that they made for actually people who are doing human flight. They also make a bunch of RC jet engines. I think the Pro Series are the ones for people who are strapping them, the crazy fucks that are putting them on their body, like me and, you know, quite a few other people have done this. So if we go over here really quick, this is my fuel consumption calculator. So this is the engine right here. This is its consumption rate in gallons per minute. This is the multiplication factor. So I figured 1 for each foot, and then probably ones that are roughly half powered for each hand. So that's about multiplication factor of 3. And then with a flight time of 5 minutes, you're looking at a tank size of 5 gallons. So 5.15 gallons there. So that's what we're looking at now, and that's not very long on flight time. That's about 270 pounds of thrust, which I think is pretty reasonable for me plus the suit. I don't weigh very much. I weigh like 145, 150 pounds. But with the suit on me, the suit's gonna be pretty big. It's gonna be carrying a lot of stuff like fuel and batteries and actuators. And even though it's all made out of aluminum and Kevlar, which will keep it very light, it's still going to be somewhat heavy. So I think 270 is a pretty good margin there. We're looking at like 4 to 5 minutes of flight time. If I put that to 4, we're looking at 4 gallons. So it's almost a gallon per minute. which is difficult because that's hard to put that much fuel on my back. So, and I'm trying to get up to altitude, and this isn't even with afterburners yet. So I was hoping to put afterburners on it. So right now it looks like my fuel consumption is going to be super high, and I'm not going to be able to fly for very long in this thing. So at the very least, maybe I can build it and hover in it, but I would only be able to hover in it for a few minutes. Oh yeah, and then the other thing that I'm working on right now is I've been looking at hosing. I'm here on McMaster right now. McMaster Car, great website. Looking at their stuff, and then I'm looking at hose, and then I'm looking at quick disconnects. So I've been looking at pictures of the Apollo escape hatch, and the mechanism for how there's these little levers. Essentially, you pull a lever, and it's run by a bunch of these rods. There's a bunch of rods that have swivels on them, and then they force a latch to come in, and the latch comes in, and when it pushes into place, it's in the direction that you would pull on it. A rod kind of, when it flips up, it locks so that you can push. You'd have to bend the metal. You can never cause it to flip out of latch position. So the idea was to take essentially that design and modify it, what they did for the Apollo 11 or for all the Apollo escape hatches, so they could get in and out fast. They did this after the fire for Apollo 1. There's a fire, they couldn't get out, everyone died in the thing. So I want to take this system and do that. And so what I'm planning is having a hatch, like a latch or something, some kind of handle that could be moved here, and then the fuel cell would come in and latch on in the same kind of idea as this, and then it'd be a quick disconnect in case I caught fire. I could ditch the very highly flammable stuff. That's the idea. So I want to be able to get rid of the fuel, and then maybe the batteries will be in a similar way. So I want to be able to ditch the batteries and ditch the fuel if I catch fire. That's the idea. And then also have, like I said, a flame retardant base layer on as well. But, oh, right. So the tricky thing is that I also need the fuel, the coupling that goes in. That also has to be quick release, and it has to turn off when it comes off so it doesn't spray fuel everywhere, because that would not be helpful if you're on fire and you release the fuel tank and the fuel tank just starts squirting pressurized fuel out super fast. Essentially just become a flamethrower, right? That wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good at all. So right now the couplings, these are the standard couplings that you find on McMaster for fuel and for fuel lines. I've looked I found some more on Amazon. I'm less I don't want to trust Amazon as much because it's fucking Amazon, and this is essentially, okay, here's the thing. So I was looking at what I wanted was like a quick release coupling, what they use on hydraulic hoses. When you undo those, the male side is it closes. So it's always closed until you put it into the female side, and then it opens up and lets the hydraulic fluid through. The female side usually doesn't do that. I think even the female side does that too, actually. Yes, that's right, it does. So when those hoses are pulled apart, the hydraulic fluid can't leak out. I want something like that for the fuel line, so that when the fuel tank comes off, it's sealed up and closed, and then any fuel inside the lines, inside the suit, will also be closed off. So I want that as well. And then the idea is, if we come back over here for a moment, is that all of that kind of interfacing, this will be a flat piece right here, coming through here. And so if we look from the side here, this box right here is going to be recessed, right? So there's a little bit of room in here. And so the idea is to have all the fuel couplings and stuff running through here into this boxed area right here. And then the fuel will be held in there. So I need some kind of quick disconnect coupling in here. And then the idea was to have, so the coupling would come in, and then there'd be 4 valves. It'd be like a 4-way valve, and the valves would run to each limb. So the fuel would run to both the hands and both the feet. The problem with that is it's running to the inside of the suit, so there's still fuel flowing to the inside of the suit, which I'm in the suit. So it would be in between the deep and superficial layer, though, which is how the suit's designed. If you're new to the channel, there's a deep and superficial layer to the exoskeleton, so this is going to be a joint, and this is going to be a joint. They're in the same human joint, but there's 2 of them, and then everything will run in between this gap. And if we look here for a second at this full body one, this is draft. I'm working on draft 5. This is draft 4. Here you can see much more clearly that kind of double deep and superficial system here. So it terminates at the hands, and there's only one. So there's only one ring here. But if you look here, there's a joint there, and there's a joint there. So this is that gap through which everything can run. So the fuel would be running through there, and then the idea is on this base layer, the deep layer would be there'd be aluminum in there, and then it'd probably be reinforced with Kevlar, and then the idea would be to completely try to flame-proof the inside where I'm at. Yeah, so right now I'm having issues with how I'm going to attach the fuel cell into the back of this thing and how that's going to look exactly. So don't really have an end right now. I'm not ending the vlog right now. I just want to let you know what I'm thinking about right now, and then I will come back and talk to you guys by the end of the day and let you know if I figured anything out or if I'm still thinking and all of that jazz. I came up with one idea I wanted to share with you guys. So what I was thinking is there's that storage spot. There's storage on the torso, and there's also potential storage on the pelvis. But what I was thinking, so we go back to the full body over here on draft 4, you can see how there's like a rounded part coming off the back here, and then there's a rounded part coming off the back here, and then there's this stuff in between. Now what I'm thinking is extending this down like that, come down, and then you see how these are flanged out and flanged up? It's going to be opposite on the next draft. They're going to be flanged down, which will make everything more streamlined and it'll just work better. So this will kind of be part of that flanged down part. And then I can fit a much larger fuel tank, potentially all the way down to there. I've already kind of decided there's not much moving backwards in the suit. I'll be able to move forward, but I'm not going to be able to open up and go backwards. So it won't really reduce range of motion any. So I'll probably just keep this flat, and then I can reduce this like theoretically all the way down to there if I need to, and I have a big old fuel tank right here, and then the latch only has to latch into one spot, so which is just in the back and doesn't have to do any latching down there. That way I don't have to build one latch and don't have to build two, and you know, there's only one fuel system, and having two fuel systems would be crazy and awful. And then I can put a rounded fuel system in there too, and then on the spaces on the side of the rounded parts, I can put lots of batteries so that I can have both of my volatile things on one thing that can be released and pushed off with one hatch. And then that will simplify things a lot. And then I just have to design the couplings for them, the quick release couplings, which I'm already working on some ideas for that. I think I could just build it myself, so I can design and build my own valve. I think that's in my wheelhouse because I have a lathe. So, yeah. All right, guys, look at the towing on this weld right here. This weld is pretty good. It's a little fucked up right there, but it got hot down here. So it kind of disappeared a little bit in there, and then I ran into a rough patch, and then you can see my diamonds start to come away back, and then they disappear again. But up here at the beginning, this is pretty good. And what's different about this weld versus this weld, which is not that good, is the towing angle, which is, so this is creating a bump, which means it's not hot enough. This is not creating a bump. It's more flat, which is what you want. That's how a weld should be. It should be flat like this. So there's not really much of a tow here. There's a little bit of one, but I think that's quite acceptable, I think. This is not really acceptable because you're not melting the base enough. Same there. So this is getting better, and this is also faster, which this thing is super hot right now, but apparently it keeps it colder than moving slowly. And you can see each of these dabs is where I took the torch, moved it ahead, dab, took the torch, moved it ahead, took the torch, moved it ahead, dab, took the torch, moved it ahead, dab, took the torch, moved it ahead, dabbed, 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 dabbed. So moving it, dabbing, moving it, dabbing, moving it, dabbing, like that. All right, guys, so here is a good representation of how this mechanism works on the Apollo things. This thing they put together was absolutely bonkers. It's just insane. So there's all these, if you go back to this, each of those pieces we were just looking at are these, and these are the hatches that close it. There's 15 of it around the on the door. So on the door there's 15 of these things that squish on here. And then the way they work, so somehow it's driven by this system right here, and I think this is the lever, and I don't really understand how it's pulled. I've looked at it. There's some gears in here. There's some crazy shit going on. And then there's a part down here that twists.
and it twists. And when it does that, it pushes all these cams this way, or one way, then the other way. And so one way is closing it, one way is opening it. It looks like it's open right now, and they're all pushed up. And then when these get pulled this way, and they all get pulled the same direction, I believe. Well, maybe these ones over here get pulled this way, so they might be mirrored of each other. Looks like that's probably what's up. But anyway, as that happens, those cams go in right here, right? And they pull it this way. And this thing right here, let's see if I can find a side view. See this right here? I know this is really probably pretty tight, but if you look right here, that's how it looks when it's open right there, or closed. That's how it looks when it's closed, excuse me. So what happens is this part gets pulled this way, and then that joint gets pushed up here. So here it is from another angle. This is a better angle. So this pulls that way, this turns, and this piece in the middle, it comes up like this, and then they twist and they pop down. So they're like this, and then this gets pulled, and they lock like that. So they go lock down like that, and so they're pushing down, and then they're locked up against each other, so they can't get pushed. You'd have to crush the metal once it's there. Once that pin is pulled, and it also produces a lot of force, almost like a pair of because of the mechanical advantage on that, almost like a pair of vice grips or something like that. And then there's this little thing on there that actually, this thing was so over-designed. Like each of these have a rod that goes through there, and then there's a shouldered rod that fits in there, and then there's a hole like here on the other side, and there's a little set pin that fits in there. It's one of those half-cut pieces, so it's like hollow on the inside. It's like a curved piece of metal, and it springs out, and you push them in there, and they hold things together. It's crazy, really crazy. And then obviously it's bolted down, or they might either bolted or riveted down, but they really designed the fuck out of this thing. And that's just this single mechanism, That gear system is crazy too. And then there's all these rods that go in between. The rods can be adjusted in length and stuff. It's real crazy. This thing, it's like I don't know if it's metal, if it was metal or if it was plastic, but that would just push, push so efficiently on that door. You can tell that after that fire, these guys went like, holy fuck, and they engineered the fuck out of this thing. This thing is so crazy. It's just an insane system what they did here. So this is it closed right here. So you see how that is pushed forward? So as that part comes forward, it pops it forward. So what I'm thinking about doing is see this one right here was I think part of the complexity of this is this door was curved. So I think that's part of what added to the complexity of this. And they also think they really wanted it to fucking work, obviously. They didn't want people to get stuck in there again. So they made it really work really well. But I think it being on a curved door was difficult. Mine will be flat. So what I'm thinking about doing, instead of having this kind of... There's 2 degrees of freedom in this. Instead of having 2 degrees of freedom, I'm thinking I'm going to do it on a flat plane. And then I'm going to have kind of like a lock and key kind of thing, so that it'll take it and it'll push it into the side, and then the 2 kind of soft aluminums will kind of push into each other, and then they'll add, and then hopefully that'll keep things from rattling too much. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to have, like, if this is a piece of metal and my hand is a piece of metal and there's a joint on this elbow and there's a joint here like this, there will be one of those driving rods coming like this, and as it pulls down, it'll go like this, boom, and it'll push. This elbow would be the lock and key, so it'll push in, and then it'll be locked over here, and then you won't be able to push this way because it'll be a solid piece of bar, right? They'll be completely in line, and when they're completely in line, it can't get pushed out. So it'll be really strong that way, and then if you take the pin, you pull it up, this part will pop open, just kind of like a pair of, vice grips, and that's how it'll be. And then there'll be the rods I can make out of, I can do this all out of 3D printed. I can do this all out of water jet cut stuff. It could get pretty complicated. It could end up being like 4 layers thick of metal. Unless I could try to figure out a way of modeling this with something called a compliant mechanism. I've done a video on those, and then Veritasium has a really good video on those as well, which you can check out, and I recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's really good. But I could potentially use a compliant mechanism on it. I'd show you mine, but I just broke mine. Mine just broke, which makes me which is funny because it's like, maybe I don't want to use those because they might fucking break. I don't know if you did it that way. If you did it with a compliant mechanism, it would be much more simple because there wouldn't be 2 separate pieces. The joints, it would just all be cut out of one. If you don't, what a compliant mechanism is, it just means something that bends. So if it would be like you make a thin piece and it bends, and you essentially replace a hinge with a part that bends, and you can do a bunch of calculations on it, and you can make sure you're not exceeding the flexibility of your material, so that it won't break essentially. So you can bend it without overstraining it, and in theory you can make it to where they'll last forever, and they essentially aren't any really moving. There's no wearing parts because there's no joints. So there's potential I could take this and I could try to figure out how to do it in a compliant mechanism. But if I do that, I have to figure out how to make compliant mechanisms, which is kind of crazy. So there's a couple of books, and you can read the first parts of them. I looked at one of them today. You can look at the first parts of them on Amazon, and I might try to read some more of those today, see if that's something I think I can do, or if I'm going to do it more traditionally, I might do it that way too. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out, but we're getting there. We're getting close. Just not quite there yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. You guys are great. Smash the subscribe button if you're new. You know you want to. Love you guys.